It started on one of those soft, golden afternoons, the kind that feels almost too quiet, where sunlight hangs in the air like a memory, and the walls of the house hum with stillness. There was nothing unusual about that day, at least not at first. I remember standing in the kitchen, stirring a cup of tea. The faint sound of the spoon against the ceramic filled the silence. It was peaceful, calm, but also heavy. The kind of silence that carries things unsaid. That's when he walked in. My stepson Ethan. His hand was pressed against his temple, his expression tired. "Do we have anything for headaches?" he asked, his tone polite but low. I turned toward him, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. There was something in his gaze. Not pain exactly, but weariness, confusion. Like someone carrying the weight of something unspoken. "Of course," I said softly, opening the medicine drawer. But what I didn't know at that moment was that this simple act, this small gesture of care, would trigger something none of us were ready for. Not a scandal, not betrayal, but a secret, buried deep, waiting to resurface. I reached for the bottle on the counter, thinking it was a painkiller. I handed it to him without checking twice. He nodded, took it quietly and thanked me. For a second, when our fingers brushed, I felt a strange shiver. Not emotion, but intuition. Like my body knew before my mind did. That something was wrong. Ethan walked away to the living room. I stood frozen, the faint rattle of the bottle echoing in my head. Something didn't feel right. When I looked closer at the label, my breath caught. It wasn't the usual headache tablet. It was a strong sleeping aid. One that could cause dizziness if taken at the wrong time. My heart pounded. It was an accident. A small, human mistake. But in that moment, it felt much larger. I rushed to the living room. Ethan was sitting quietly on the couch, his head resting on his hand. "Ethan, what did you just take?" I asked quickly. He looked up, a little dazed. "The tablet you gave me." "Why?" My throat tightened. "It was the wrong one," I admitted, voice trembling slightly. "You might feel drowsy for a bit, but it'll pass." "I'm so sorry." He blinked slowly, confused. "It's fine. Just feels strange." And for a second, the air between us grew still. Not out of attraction or tension, but worry. A deep, unspoken fear of what could happen because of a single, careless moment. As evening fell, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept glancing at him from the kitchen. He looked pale, tired, almost lost in thought. The golden light dimmed into orange, and shadows stretched across the room. Every tick of the clock sounded louder. Every small noise made my heart jump. He looked at me once, forcing a smile. "I'm okay really," he said softly. But his eyes, they told another story. I wanted to tell his father, but he was still at work, and part of me didn't want to make a bigger deal out of it. Another part whispered, "What if something happens?" So I stayed close, watching, listening. It wasn't about fear anymore. It was about responsibility, about guilt that wouldn't let me rest. Later that night, Ethan sat on the couch, his head tilted back, staring at the ceiling. The lamplight painted soft patterns across his face. "You should rest," I said. "The medicine might still be in your system." He smiled faintly. "I will. I just keep thinking about stuff." "What kind of stuff?" I asked gently. He hesitated. "Nothing important. Just how small mistakes can change things." His words hit deeper than he knew. I sat down across from him, the quiet between us thick but peaceful. It wasn't the silence of awkwardness. It was the silence of two people lost in their own thoughts, each replaying the same moment differently. I kept replaying the scene in my mind. The way he had looked at me, confused but trusting. How easily he'd taken the tablet without question. And how quickly a mother's instinct had turned into guilt. It wasn't about the pill anymore. It was about what it revealed. How fragile we all were. How one careless act could ripple through a family like a quiet storm. His father came home later that night. I didn't tell him everything, just that Ethan had a mild reaction to the wrong medicine. And he was fine now. He nodded, relieved, unaware of the emotional storm quietly brewing beneath our calm faces. Long after everyone had gone to bed, I sat in the dark, the glow of the hallway light spilling across the floor. I could still hear Ethan's words echoing. How small mistakes can change things. I realized that maybe he wasn't just talking about the medicine. Maybe he meant life. The choices we make. The things we hide to protect others. Sometimes silence feels safer. But silence also grows heavier the longer you hold it. When I came downstairs, Ethan was already awake, sitting by the window with a cup of coffee. He looked better. Calm, collected, but thoughtful. "Morning," I said softly. He smiled. "Morning. And, thanks for last night. For giving you the wrong pill?" I said half-jokingly, trying to lighten the mood. He shook his head. "No. For staying. For caring enough to worry." That simple line stayed with me all day. Because sometimes it's not grand gestures that hold families together, it's those quiet moments of presence. Being there. Even when you don't have the right words. Days passed. Life went on. But that one evening changed something between us. Not in a forbidden way, but in a human way. We began to talk more. About school, about his late mother, about how he felt growing up with a stepfamily. He opened up, slowly. As if that one mistake had unlocked a door that had always been locked between us. And I realized, sometimes guilt isn't a punishment. It's a bridge. It forces you to care deeper, to listen harder, to love in quieter ways. It wasn't about the pill. It was never about that. It was about connection. How two people who barely understood each other began to see one another clearly for the first time. The world outside kept moving. Traffic, laughter, routine. But inside the house, something subtle had changed. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was real. Sometimes life doesn't give us warnings before it teaches us lessons. One small act, a single mistake, can unfold into a realization you didn't know you needed. For me, it was learning that caring is never a weakness. That guilt, when faced honestly, becomes compassion. And that sometimes the quietest connections are the ones that truly heal. As I stood in the kitchen again, days later, stirring another cup of tea, sunlight poured through the same window. It looked like the same day. But it wasn't. Everything had shifted subtly, silently. Not because of the mistake, but because of what came after it. The honesty, the care, the quiet understanding that we're all human. And humans, after all, are built not from perfection, but from moments of forgiveness.